Okay, let's jump right into this. We've all seen the headlines, right? The rockets, the billionaires, the absolute spectacle of the biggest IPO in history. It honestly feels like a Hollywood blockbuster unfolding right on Wall Street. But what if I told you the real story, the one that actually impacts your wallet, isn't happening on the launch pad at all? It's actually happening quietly, right inside your everyday retirement account. $1.77 trillion. I mean, wow. This staggering valuation isn't just larger than most countries' economies, it's the ultimate magic trick meant to completely capture your attention. At this price, SpaceX isn't just a rocket company anymore. It is an absolute behemoth stepping onto the public markets. And when a number this massive drops, the entire financial ecosystem literally has to reorient itself to absorb it. But, as with any good magic trick, while everyone is staring at the flashy distraction in one hand, the real move is happening in the other. So that brings us to the most important question of this entire explainer. Is your 401k secretly buying the hype? Look, while everyday American investors are watching the fireworks and debating those day one stock pops, we're going to pull back the curtain on the quiet rule changes that are infiltrating your retirement account right now. Most of us just put our money on autopilot in target date funds or broad market indexes, right? We assume it's safe, boring, and protected. But the mechanics of those boring funds are being completely rewired just in time for this mega IPO. Section 1. The Index Fund Gatekeepers. Think of major market indices like exclusive VIP clubs, guarded by some incredibly strict bouncers. Now, the S&P 500 demands actual bottom-line profit. This perfectly illustrates why SpaceX was initially rejected by them. Despite having wildly profitable Starlink revenues, SpaceX posted a massive $4.9 billion paper loss in 2025. Why? Because they poured billions into futuristic AI and infrastructure. It's a strategic loss to conquer the future, sure, but the S&P 500 bouncer, he doesn't care about nuance. He sees a negative number and he locks the door. So plain S&P 500 funds cannot touch SpaceX. But check out the stark contrast here. While the S&P 500 absolutely refused to bend its profit rules, the NASDAQ 100 just introduced a brand new 15-day fast-track rule for megacaps. They literally eliminated their usual seasoning requirements specifically to roll out the red carpet for massive, currently unprofitable giants like SpaceX. Different clubs, very different bouncers. Section 2. Inside your 401k. Now you might be thinking, hey, I'm not logging into my brokerage app to buy SpaceX, so why should I care? Well, because of these new rule changes, in just 15 trading days after the IPO, every single NASDAQ index fund will be contractually forced to buy SpaceX with your money, completely on autopilot. This is called forced buying. It means fund managers don't sit around debating if a $1.77 trillion price tag is fair. They just mechanically match the index. Whatever sky-high price SpaceX is trading at on day 15, your 401k steps up and buys it, no questions asked. And to make matters worse, an August 2025 executive order is quietly removing the guardrails entirely. It allows expensive, pre-IPO private assets into your everyday target date funds. The pitch is that it democratizes access, but for everyday investors, it introduces strict illiquidity. That means your money gets locked up when you might actually need it. Add in crushing fee structures and the harsh reality that you're buying into late-stage valuations long after the insiders have already captured all the early growth. Let's look at the actual math on this. Imagine a standard $100,000 portfolio growing over a 30-year career. A regular index fund charges roughly 0.03%, which leaves you with a really robust $750,000. But those private asset funds, now baked into a 401k, they can charge 2% or even more. That sneaky little fee increase will quietly vaporize over $300,000 of your potential wealth. Even if the fund performs exactly the same as the broader market, those fees totally gut your final outcome. Section 3. The Insiders and Lockups. Now that we know how the system forces your 401k to buy, let's look at who's actually selling. Look at this visual. It shows the dangerous artificial scarcity of day one. Only a tiny 4% of SpaceX shares are actually available to the public on IPO day. The other 96% held by insiders and early venture capitalists, and it's temporarily locked up. Unprecedented global demand chasing a measly 4% of a company creates a massive frenzy, engineering a total squeeze that drives the price sky high. But you've got to watch this ticking clock. As these lockup periods expire over the next few months, a flood of insider shares is going to hit the market. By September, the available float increases 5 times over, By December, you get a massive insider unlock. Historically, with hyped companies like Uber or Rivian, when this tidal wave of new supply hits the open market, it creates brutal downward pressure on the stock's price. And remember, your 401k might be forced to buy right before that pressure hits. At that $1.77 trillion valuation, retail investors are paying an astronomical 94 times revenue. And I want to be clear, that's revenue, not profit. To put that into perspective, that is roughly double the $780 billion fair value estimated by independent analysts over at Morningstar. When retail investors rush in on day one, they are not getting a ground floor opportunity. No way. They are paying a massive, massive premium to the early venture capitalists who bought in years ago.
Section 4. Surviving the Hike.
So how do you navigate this financial thriller without becoming the exit liquidity for billionaires? Let's contrast Logan, the FOMO buyer who wakes up early to overpay at the absolute top on IPO day, with Dana, the autopilot investor. Dana does nothing. She just waits and buys a tiny, risk-managed slice later through her cheap index fund. Logan is paying full retail price for a ticket the insiders already used, while Dana relies on slow, methodical market compounding. The boring strategy wins almost every single time. Here are the cool-headed, actionable steps you need to take to protect your portfolio right now. First, log in and check your 401k expense ratios. Protect that cheap fee structure. Second, filter the massive hype of the company from the actual price of the stock. Third, completely avoid the day one FOMO trap. The market is always going to give you a better entry point once the dust settles. And finally, respect the boring, low-cost index fund. It is literally your greatest wealth-building tool. Let me leave you with this golden rule. Separate the company from the price forever. Look, the reusable rockets and Starlink's massive global margins are undeniably phenomenal achievements. But paying for the absolute top of the value curve, that rarely works out for the retail investor. A world-changing company can still be a terrible investment if the price you're paying has already priced in a decade of flawless execution. I really hope this breakdown gave you some genuine clarity on the mechanics operating behind the scenes of your retirement account. If you appreciate clear, unbiased financial education that cuts through all the Wall Street noise, please like, comment, and subscribe to this explainer to support the channel. It really helps us out. Take control of your 401k today. Read the fine print before the fine print reads you. And as you watch the nonstop news coverage of this historic IPO over the coming weeks, ask yourself this final, absolutely critical question. When the dust settles, will your retirement savings be working for you or acting as the exit door for Wall Street insiders?